The Goods and Services Tax (GST) is better than the Sales and Services Tax (SST), as it widens a country's tax base and brings in twice as much tax revenue compared to SST. GST is also regarded as more efficient, with more than 170 countries around the world adopting some kind of value-added tax or GST system.
Apurva explained that GST is a regressive system because it is based on a tax on consumption, and almost 60% of the economy depends on consumption. However, he noted that GST is not without its shortcomings, one of which is that the lower income households consume more than the regular households, which would affect them if a regressive tax system based on consumption like GST were implemented. He said that tax exemptions may not be the best option to address the regressiveness of the GST, but instead, the government must spend on assisting or providing subsidies to the lower income group if it were to reintroduce the GST. In 2015, a 6% GST was introduced but was abolished when Pakatan Harapan took over the federal government and replaced it with the current SST system in 2018. In an interview with Nikkei Asia in Tokyo in May, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the government was not ruling out the possibility of reinstating GST as an effective way to increase national income and help combat inflation and the rising costs of living. Meanwhile, the World Bank on Monday released a report stating that the Malaysian economy is projected to expand by 5.5% in 2022, driven mainly by a strong rebound in consumption. The World Bank also projected Malaysia's economy to grow by 4.5% in 2023 and 4.4% in 2024. It noted that the country's economic recovery is expected to continue this year, following a healthy 5% growth in the first quarter of 2022. The bank said the full withdrawal of movement restrictions and the reopening of the economy will reposition Malaysia on a quicker recovery path, with fiscal consolidation to support inclusive recovery across the country should remain a key priority but needs to be implemented gradually. The World Bank said that in the short term, fiscal policy should be focused on maintaining financial support for the poor and vulnerable and establishing a more inclusive social protection framework with better targeting. It said the government's various cash assistance programs throughout the pandemic have provided important support to households, and higher fiscal spending in response to the pandemic has helped support the economy, which has also led to further narrowing of the fiscal space.
A 5-year-old boy was burned to death in an 11-door longhouse fire at Rumah Polis Sulau Bukong Asal, Jalan Lidong Asal in Betong this morning. Authorities said the body of Resdeson Carlos Robson was found in the kitchen of one of the units of the longhouse.
According to reports by the Betong Fire and Rescue Department Bomba, the deceased's mother, 25-year-old NC Sheila, and his sister, Elsa Amanda Robson, too, suffered burns from the incident. The Bomba received a distress call at 9:22 a.m. and a team of 9 firefighters from Betong Fire Station, led by Senior Fire Superintendent 2, Muhammad Faisal Rashid, were deployed to the scene immediately. Upon arrival, the Bomba reported that all 11 doors of the 220 by 50 square feet non-permanent structure longhouse were completely razed to the ground. The fire was under control after 1 hour of the operation. All except Resdeson survived the fire incident, though it has left at least 59 residents of the longhouse homeless. His body has been sent to the police before being brought to the hospital for further action. The cause of the incident is still under investigation.
A motorcyclist was found dead after he lost control of his motorbike at Jalan Lanang Sibu on Sunday, while the pillion riders suffered minor injuries. The incident occurred at about 3:30 a.m. and was confirmed by Sibu's District Police Chief, Assistant Commissioner Zulkifli Suhaili.
The deceased was identified as 17-year-old Kimi Balan. Zulkifli stated that both victims were headed towards the Alan roundabout from Aman roundabout before the motorcyclist lost control and crashed on the left side of the road. Kimi suffered major injuries to his head and was declared dead by paramedics at the scene and was taken to the hospital for further investigation, while the pillion rider is currently receiving treatment. Though no arrests were made, the case will be investigated under Section 41 in Bracket 1 of the Road Transport Act 1987.
Now, in similar incident, a 29-year-old motorcyclist was pronounced dead after it was suspected he was involved in an accident with a car at Jalan Tulai, Bintangor on Sunday. The deceased hails from a longhouse located at Jalan Nibong Tada in Cebu. According to Moradong District Police Chief DSP Sekam Anoy, the accident occurred at about 10:40 p.m. when a 35-year-old woman was driving her car from Bintangor to Cebu. The driver was at Jalan Tulai when she felt that something had hit her car and then saw smoke coming out from her car's front bonnet. The woman then pulled over from the scene. Without sensing anything amiss, she then called up a car towing company to send her car back to Cebu. Policemen arriving at the scene later found out that the motorcyclist was already dead. The case is being investigated under Section 41 Bracket 1 of the Road Transport Act 1987. Don't go anywhere. Coming up after the break, despite Cabinet's latest decision, over 1,000 inmates to face the gallows until further notice, and rare Arabian horses face possible extinction. Right here on TVS Nightline. We'll be back. Welcome back. The amendment related to the abolition of the mandatory death penalty will be tabled for its first reading in Parliament in October. Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Parliament and Law, Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, expects the provision of the law to be realistically abolished by January next year.
Kita boleh menyelesaikan persoalan-persoalan pindaan dulu dan bentangkan pindaan melaksanakan apa yang Jemaah Menteri dah putus untuk menghapuskan mandatory death sentence pada bulan bulan Oktober nanti, dan finally buat Dewan Negara akan bincang dia bulan Disember, dan insya-Allah by Januari Februari kita dah ada undang-undang tu dimasukkan secara realiti menerusi undang-undang. Makna dia dilema ataupun serba salah kita tu akan diatasi berhubung dengan kes di mahkamah, kes yang nak dituduh semula dan sebagainya tu kita dah dapat atasi pada ketika itu.
He added, a survey would be conducted to get feedback from the public regarding the abolition of the mandatory death penalty. Should there be opposition, the matter will be brought to the cabinet ministers for further discussion. Wan Junaidi clarified that the death penalty still exists in Malaysian law, even though the government had decided to abolish the mandatory death penalty on June 8th, adding that they would substitute it with other sentences, which are subject to the discretion of the court.
In the same vein, Wan Junaidi said the Legal Affairs Division and the Attorney General's chambers are in the midst of studying the feasibility of the recommendation made by the Special Committee on 1,342 inmates whose death sentences were put on hold due to the amendment.
Dan saya akan buat libat urus balik dengan pihak tribunal itu nanti, melihat apa angle dia mengatakan cadangan tribunal tu, dan saya juga akan mungkin berjumpa dan menghadap ketua hakim negara untuk mendapat pandangan beliau daripada sudut ini. Bukan saya nak melibat hakim tapi saya nak mendengar pandangan. Dan selepas itu baru kita membawa kes-kes ini ke Jemaah Menteri untuk keputusan kerjaan sekali lagi, macam mana untuk menyelesaikan kes orang telah dihukum oleh mahkamah.
In this regard, Wan Junaidi said the death penalty is still in effect until the implementation of the abolition of the death penalty, including amendments to the related acts. He added that judges will still have the option to sentence the person found guilty of a crime to either death or life imprisonment or whipping.
The government, led by Prime Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob, is a stable government due to the support of all parties, including the opposition, says Communication and Multimedia Minister Tan Sri Anwar Musa. Therefore, he said, there was no urgent need to dissolve Parliament now to enable the 15th general election to be held. The Ketereh MP said, leading a strong and stable government, Prime Minister Dato Sri Ismail Sabri Yaakob wanted to continue focusing on the agenda that could benefit the people. Anwar said apart from being supported by Pakatan Harapan, several parties outside the PAK had also expressed support for the government. Asked whether the Ismail Sabri-led government should bow to pressure and advise the Yang di-Pertuan Agong to dissolve Parliament and pave the way for GE15, Anwar replied that the dissolution of Parliament for the last general election was not due to pressure. You're watching TVS Nightline. Now, the World Trade Organization WTO chief Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala told more than 100 trade ministers across the globe that it will be hard to achieve global trade deals from here on out. Now, this was following the many challenges the world has faced since the last two ministerial conference in 2017.
I've never seen in my lifetime so many conflicts at the same time. And I've spoken so much about this because it's pretty unusual. We're still trying to cope with a pandemic that has cost the world millions of lives. We have an international security crisis with the war in Ukraine. We have a major food crisis, an energy crisis, and we have an ongoing climate change crisis. So this poly-crisis or simultaneous crisis is really unprecedented.
The Director General from Nigeria also urged trade ministers to find the political will over the coming days to achieve agreements such as reducing fishing subsidies, boosting access to COVID-19 vaccines, addressing food security, and setting a course for reform of the WTO itself.
The geopolitical tensions we're dealing with are real. We cannot pretend otherwise, and I wouldn't. But at the same time, it would be a mistake to let these tensions spill over into our work here. If we do, the consequences on the WTO's work and the functions of the multilateral trading system would be severe. Times are difficult, but when the going gets tough, the tough get going. I'm optimistic that with the requisite political will, a word you'll hear from me many times, we can tackle the negotiations in front of us, endorse the declarations, and take the decisions that will show the world that the WTO is part of the solutions to the world's pressing problems.
The WTO's 164 members take decisions by consensus, meaning a single member can block progress, and negotiations often last years.
Police across India have arrested protesters on charges of participating in violent demonstrations and damaging properties following derogatory remarks against Islam by a spokesperson of India's ruling party. Clashes erupted in India on Friday as Muslims took to the streets to protest against anti-Islamic comments made by two members of the Hindu nationalist Bharatiya Janata Party or BJP.
আমাদের মুসলমানদের যে ধর্ম নিয়ে যে নুপুর শর্মা যে আমাদের বার্তাটা দিয়েছেন সেই বার্তার প্রতিবাদে আজকে আমাদের হযরত মুহাম্মদ সাল্লাল্লাহু আলাইহি সাল্লাম আমাদের সবথেকে সর্বশ্রেষ্ঠ নেতা মুসলমানদের তাই নুপুর শর্মা বাজে কথা বলেছে বাজে মন্তব্য করেছে তার প্রতিবাদে আমরা মিছিল
Police in India's northern Saharanpur town, which saw violent clashes between security forces and demonstrators, said they have made at least 71 arrests so far. The clashes and arrests were followed by a demolition drive in Saharanpur, where the houses of those who were accused of being involved in the protests were razed by the authorities.
दो इसमें शामिल थे इस तरह के प्रदर्शन में उनकी दो अवैध प्रॉपर्टी पाई गई थी बिना नक्शे के मकान बनाना पाया गया था उसमें नगर निगम और पुलिस प्रशासन की संयुक्त टीम ने उसको भी बुलडोज किया है इन पे हम एनएसए की भी कार्रवाई करेंगे लगातार इसमें जो भी शामिल हैं हम उन पे कार्रवाई हमारी जारी है अभी तक हम 71 इसमें गिरफ्तार कर चुके हैं शरारती तत्वों को उनको जेल भेज चुके हैं
Earlier this month, the BJP suspended its spokeswoman for controversial comments that also angered several Muslim countries, causing a massive diplomatic challenge for India. Countries such as Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Oman, and Iran, which are key trade partners for India, lodged protests through diplomatic channels and used social media to demand an apology from the government. BJP leaders have issued instructions to several senior members to be extremely cautious when talking about religion on public platforms, and the government continues to tighten public security.
8 hikers were rescued following a strong blizzard that hit a mountain in Tasmania on Sunday, June 12. 2 of the hikers, who are 27 and 16 years old, are currently being treated in hospital for hypothermia. The extreme weather has also wreaked havoc in the state with severe wind bringing down power lines and topping tall trees, leaving many households without power. The cold front is traveling north towards Australia's mainland, causing large swells along the coast. Years of conflict in the Arabian land have decimated the lives of many Arabian horses, prized for their good looks, graceful posture, and muscular body. Their population has suffered greatly as the number has declined from 20,000 to 5,000 across Syria. Fortunately, a horse breeder known as Ma'an Jafar has taken the responsibility of ensuring the survival of the species.
يعني بنحبها كتير، بنعشقها عشق. يعني إذا بيمرق نهار ما بنشوفه، بنمرق على المزرعة بنحسه صعب كتير. مو القيمة قيمة مادية ولا قيمة شيء، القيمة صار في تناغم بيننا وبين الخيول، صار في حب، صار في عشق، ومسمعين الخيول والولادات الجديدة باسم أولادنا، باسم أولاد العائلة كلها.
These horses have been regarded as loyal companions to many Syrians, and they are considered as symbols of perseverance, bravery, and victory. Unfortunately, the constant war has made them a cargo carrier of weapons and food by the terrorists. They would often steal them, prompting Jafar and his brothers to transfer the horses from one location to another multiple times overnight.
استعملوهن بالجبال، صوب حلب، صوب تركيا أخذوهن، استعملوهن يحملوا عليهن أسلحة مثلا يطلعوا على الجبال، ولما يجوعوا يذبحوهن وياكلوهن. تقديريا كان عندنا شيء 20,000 بالسنة الماضية، كان عندنا 5,000 فرس، يعني راح بالحرب تقريبا شيء 15,000.
Jafar said he is now facing new challenges, including the high cost of feed, not only caused by the war, but a prolonged drought in the northeastern region of the Middle East for the last 2 years. Despite the hardship, Jafar, along with other breeders, will continue to devote themselves to the species' survival.
In recent times, boxing has garnered the attention of many Sarawakians, not only as a form of cardio exercise, but to develop self-discipline. Tomorrow, a former national boxer, Major Sapot Piki, will be joining hosts Gas and Wan Alif on Sejahtera Asia to talk about recent developments of the sports in Sarawak, and they will also be joined by Dato Rahman Lariwu, the president of Sarawak Boxing Association, only on TVS Astro Channel 122 and My Free View. See the world closer with TVS as we bring you the latest news updates, both locally and internationally. Just a click away by heading on to our website, TVSTVMY, or follow us on our social media. And that's all the time we have for TVS Nightline. I'm Doug Elliott. Good night, and thank you for watching.